ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين اللهم اجعلنا من المسلمين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. All right, we are a little bit late, so I'm going to jump right into it. So we have been talking a lot. The core of what we've been talking about the past, I don't even know, almost a year now, has been going back to Surah Al-Asr. If you guys remember, I've been beating this dead horse for the past, since October of last year. We'll review really quickly because it's important to the beginning of this conversation. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Allah says, I swear by time that's running out, every individual human being is drowning in loss, except for those who do four things. We're going to review the four things again. You should know them by heart by now. Even if you don't know how to be, you should know these by now if you've been to this class. Number one, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. What does that mean? You guys know this better than this. Come on. Except for the people who believed. And وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, did good deeds. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. What about in truth? What about truth? You invite each other to the truth. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Yeah, it could be you invite each other patiently, and you also you take the advice of being patient. You tell others to be patient. Those are the four things. Okay. What we're going to talk about now, it's a pretty short passage. It's like a quarter of a page or something. We're going to try to do it as quickly as possible for today. I don't want to spend more than one day on this one. And for the next, just as a heads up, for the next 3 or 4 sessions, we're going to start a whole new passage and spend a good 2-3 months on it. I really recommend, if you didn't memorize this one, that's fine. We're doing it for one day. Do the next one. That one we're going to do, you're going to have a lot of opportunity, literally months of opportunity to get that one down by heart, inshallah. But anyway, starting with this one. What we're going to talk about today is essentially the people that did those 4 things, that believed, and that did the few good things expected of them, and that invited others to the truth and accepted advice that's towards the truth, even if they didn't like, if it hurt them that they heard it, and that were patient in what they did and told others to be patient in what they're doing as well. People that did those 4 things literally for their whole lives, meaning they messed up sometimes, of course, but they died on these 4 things is the idea. This passage is about what happens at those people's death. The moment they die, what do they see? The moment they die, what do they hear? That's what this passage is talking about. I was going to ignore it completely. I'm following a curriculum by Ustaz Noman from Bayina, and this was part of it. This was part of the curriculum. Like Jaman, when I taught this to you guys years back, I skipped this one, I think, actually. And I was going to skip it again until the Trump assassination. Then I'm like, we're doing that one. And I'll talk about why at the end, inshallah. Okay, I'll talk my intentions behind that at the end. But we'll start from the beginning. The person that we'll just let the ayah speak for itself, actually. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهِ. For those who memorize too, try to get the words down also. Like when I say the Arabic, try to be okay, now I'm connecting it to the English. The 4 of you that raise your hand, okay? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهِ. No doubt about it, no doubt, those people who said, our master is Allah, Rabbuna Allah, they made that declaration. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Then they stood firm. Then they continuously did what was expected from that declaration, from Rabbuna Allah. They stood firm, they were consistent. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. The angels will send down upon them. تَتَنَزَّلُ, by the way, means it's not just like a group of them. تَتَنَزَّلُ implies it's like waves and waves of angels appear in this person. The Sahaba, a lot of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they argued this is at the time of this person's death. So تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ, the angels are descending in waves onto this person. أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا, saying أَلَّا تَخَافُوا, don't be afraid, وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا, and don't be sad. Don't be afraid, don't be sad. I'm going to call it right now, especially in the Quranic language, or even in psychology, depression, sadness is for the past. You're not sad about things in the future. You're sad about things that happen to you, right? Anxiety, fear is for what? The future. So they're covering this person emotionally in the past and in the future. We'll talk about more of that in a little bit. أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. They're telling these people, do not be afraid, do not be afraid and don't be sad. وَأَبْشِرُوا, and receive good news and be happy, celebrate. Abshir. Abshir is like, like if your friend graduated and they're being mopey, abshir, be happy. This is a good day. Abshiru. Abshiru bil jannati, and be congratulated by the gardens. Allati kuntum tu'adun, the ones that you were promised, the ones that you knew about, the ones that you kept hearing about at lectures like this one. You're going. Congratulations. You did it. This is like the thing that every believer waits for, is like, you're done. Good job. The very end of it. This is what they hear. I remember Shaykh Kifah using this ayah, I believe, may Allah reward him, I believe it must have been this, I can't think anything else where he got it from. When the bombs first started dropping on Gaza and we had like a night here, Orland ran a night for like how to deal with this spiritually, emotionally and all that. And Shaykh Kifah used this, that like the people that their bombs are being dropped on them, you're sad for them, but they're just hearing angels. And this is where we get that from. That you see them, that they're getting shredded, all they see is this. لا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا. You're done. أبشروا بالجنة. You understand? May Allah make us of these people that hear this announcement. Let's go from the beginning. The people that make the declaration, Rabbuna Allah. I don't want to make this a lecture of Rabb again, but we remember, what does Rabb mean? What did we say the word meant? What word did we use? We talked about Rabb like a whole day. We talked about Rabb, guys. What's Rabb mean? Master. My owner is Allah. My loving master is Allah. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. And then, let me make sure, what other words? That they were firm, that they lived up to them. That's the words I was missing. They lived up to those words. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Like, aqama, what does qama mean? You stood up. Istaqama means you stood up and you stayed up. Like you didn't waver. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Thumma also here is interesting because it could have said, Allah could have easily said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا فَاسْتَقَامُوا. The people that said, our master is Allah, and in the English it would be exactly the same. Then they were firm. Thumma means then, fa means then. Thumma implies a long time past. So these people, they said this maybe in early years or whatever, and then a long years of their life passed, and they were still standing tall. They were still standing tall. I gave you guys an analogy last time of, for example, standing in the middle of a river that the currents and the people are going one way, and your job is to not move. You're not going to be taken where people's beliefs and their ideas want to take you. You were going to stand firm. Or you can think of it as like you're standing firm, you're like a tree and winds try to push you down. And you do not let those winds push you down. And even if you do get pushed down, you get back up. Istaqama. The kind of IST sound in the beginning is also effort. So they at least tried to stand by it. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Those people are rewarded by that scene that we were just talking about, angels coming down. أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Why لَا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا? First of all, they're dying. At the moment of their death, what do they fear? Or what do they feel? I'm sorry. Fear. They feel afraid. And by the way, really think about this. Even like at a normal death, in your deathbed, you're surrounded by people that you love, and they're crying, and they're afraid. They're thinking, what else can we do? And you're not, because you're hearing this. You ever see people, subhanAllah, like really good people that when they die, like they have a smile on their face? This is why they have a smile on their face. This is the ayah of why those people smile. لا تخافوا. Don't be afraid. And also, it's freaky. If they're coming down on you, you're like, what is this, And the first thing they say is, don't be afraid. Everything's good. وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. And don't be sad. One thing really interesting about this, we learned from a hadith of Prophet ﷺ, that Shaykh also taught me this as well. At the time of death, angels surround the person just like we're seeing here. Like another aspect, another kind of scene about this is the angels are taking this person up and they're all surrounding them. Like as if they, like how people surround us, or the paparazzi surround a celebrity. That's how the angels will surround you and I, inshallah, if we're like these people, right? And then other angels will be like, leave them alone. Don't you know what they just came from? Which is such validation for the stuff we have to deal with down here. Yeah? Like the sadness, the depression, the anxiety, even Allah says that I'm going to test you with the loss of money and food and children and all these different things, and fruits, meaning comfort. We're going to test you with a loss of all these different things. That's all dunya is you want things you can't have, and you want things and you lose them. Even if you get them, you lose them. Or you spend your whole life wanting it and never getting it. And you stood firm anyway. So the angels, they surround you and they're like, leave him alone, give him some space. Don't you see where she came from? Do you see she just left dunya? Leave her alone, give her some space. She finally earned a rest. She doesn't need you surrounding her right now. He doesn't need you surrounding him right now. You understand? So, la tahzanu, don't be sad. All that stuff that passed, it's over. your family sad, and you're not sad. لا تحزنوا وأبشروا. And good job. Abshir is like good job. Congratulations. Be congratulated. Bil Jannah, of the garden, Jannah, paradise. Allati kuntum tu'adun, the same one that you used to be promised all along. Nahnu awliya'ukum fil hayat ad-dunya wa fil akhirah. We were your walis. I'm going to talk about that word in a second. They're introducing themselves to this person now. We are your walis. We've been your walis. Fil hayat ad-dunya, in the previous life, wa fil akhirah, and in the next life too. A wali, who knows what wali is? Oh, good job. Yeah, it is guardian. Mashallah, good job. A lot of the time, wali is a friend, generally. But there's so many words for friend. There's Khalil and Wali, and there's like Rafiq, like, Lion King Rafiqi, for example. That's literally my friend. The monkey was named, or baboon, whatever he was. He was given Arabic names of my friend, literally. But you have all these different words, and they like for example, Rafiq is one that like, Rifq is like a pillow, like when you're really comfortable. So it's like a friend you're super comfortable with is a Rafiq. A Sahib is like, when I see her, I see the other one with her. They're just a pair. You can't. It's a BOGO. You can't have one without the other. Is a sahib. Khalil implies a lot of love. So Ibrahim alayhi salam is Khalilullah because there's a lot of love between the two of them. A wali though, so everyone has their taste. So what's the taste of awliya when they say, we have been your friends in this life and the afterlife? What are they saying when they say wali, that word? Not sahib or rafiq, but we're awliya'ukum. And this, by the way, word is a lot of controversy in Quran too, by the way. So that's why I'm taking time on this word. A wali is a protective friend. A wali, for example, when you have a political alliance with someone and like you like them, but in reality you get something out of them, they get something out of you, like the you scratch my back, I scratch yours type of deal, that's called a wali. You can trust them, they can trust you with some gain that you both get. So like that friend in college where like you trade notes, that's like a wali. Or like if you're a Muslim state and you trust another maybe non-Muslim state, they become a type of wali. Okay? So let's focus on this first. What they're saying is, we have been your protective friends, your protectors, all along in this life. We know, for example, that Allah actually, like the angels on our shoulders, that they write down our deeds, Allah calls them hafilin, that they're protectors. Which one way you could think of that is they protect like the record of the things that you do, but another way is that they literally protect you. They've been protecting you. And keep in mind, is there only 2 angels in the ayah? No. Tatanazzalu is like waves and waves and waves, which gives us a glimpse of the unseen that like Allah employs, because every angel, there's an uncountable number of angels, as we know from hadith. And so many of them, they're always employed to at least one task, and they do that task for the rest of their existence. Yeah, that's the whole idea of an angel. They have a task that Allah sets on them. And we learn here that there are angels that their entire job is taking care of me and you. Some specifically marked as Jamad as protectors, Asid as protectors, Adina as protectors, whatever. They're assigned to us as protectors. Okay? Nahnu awliya'ukum. We've been your protective friends in this life and in the afterlife too. Meaning, we've been taking care of you. We're not, we seem like strangers because you're like, who are you guys? Yeah? It's almost like it's kind of reacting to how you would think. Number 1, you would be afraid. La takhafu. Number 2, you left your family behind. La tahzanu. Don't be sad. Then it's like, okay, well, who are you guys? Nahnu awliya'ukum. We're your friends. You see how like it's like a natural psychological progression? They're emotionally taking care of you at this moment. May Allah makes of them again. We have been your protective friends all along in this life, and we're going to escort you in the next life too. Wa fil akhirah. And before I go on, what's the controversy between with the word wali, by the way? Who knows? Before I talk about it. Does anyone know? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, very good. That ayah. Yes, we have a beautiful ayah that Allah says, do not take basically the people of, I think He calls out people of the book, or generally non-Muslims in general, but I think it's people of the book and mushrikeen, people that do shirk. Do not take them as walis. And especially older translations that weren't extremely nuanced would just say, don't take them as friends. So the Muslims are like, yeah, my kafir neighbor, I can't talk to him, like. And that's not really what that's saying. What that's saying is, that's because again, it's nuanced in the Arabic. So yes, you can have a non-Muslim friend. That's extremely possible. That's very, very possibly a non-Muslim friend. A wali though is when you, for example, especially in a political sense, when you want to lead on someone, you take Muslims as wali. And this is extremely important because, and I'm going to talk about this at the end, we're in very scary times, and there are a lot of corrupt men and women right now as we speak on Twitter, on the news, promising you and I, as Muslims specifically, as Arabs also, but as Muslims, I'm going to take care of you. You have this promise. You have Trump. We're rich. We're basically, to a lot of other, are there any converts in the room at all? Sit down, guys. Tim, not speaking on your behalf, but I have a convert a convert friend, African American guy. He's been Muslim for, I don't know, must be 10, 15 years now. And he's like, one thing you guys don't understand about like suburban Arab Muslims is that you guys are basically the white people of Muslims. And not as a joke, not as a slur either, but meaning we're amongst Muslims are very privileged people. The way that you see white Americans as like they go through life easily is the same way a black Muslim will look at you and be like, you have no idea. And I talked about this before, for example, that we have a lot of people in our community that they live in amazing houses by a masjid. Crazy. My dad, actually, he worked on these houses a lot. And I would go in and be like, dude, my voice echoes. Huge. And the way they make their money a lot of the time is what? They open up a liquor store in a black community with a bunch of Muslims and sell them garbage that they can't raise a family on because that's all they can afford. They sell them liquor and lotto tickets and cigarettes and what barely passes as edible food, and they get their money that way. And then at the masjid, we tell them, Assalamu alaikum, I love you, brother. It's messed up, right? The point of this is, when we think of a wali, we're going to have a problem very soon in America where there's going to be a lot of people, from the people of the book and from the mushrikeen, promising to you, rich Muslims, because of our area, I'm going to assume us all, the generally wealthier Muslims, I'm going to be your wali. I'm Donald Trump. I'm going to lower your taxes, Mr. Doctor. I'm going to make sure that no one touches your money. That's your money. You earned it. And you're like, yeah, my dunya, I earned it. You become Iblis all of a sudden. Of course, I did it. It was all me. No one should be your wali except for fellow Muslims. So I just want to call it that controversy. That is not just like I can't hang out with people. That is protective friends. Anyway, just want to call that out. Okay. Back to the scene. نَحْنُ أَوْلِيَاؤُكُمْ, we're your protective friends. وَلَكُمْ, and then they move on. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ. Talking about Jannah. And you're going to have in it whatever your nafs, whatever you desire. Anything you've ever desired, anything you will desire, you are going to have it. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا, meaning in Jannah, you're going to have in it anything you desire. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ, you're going to have whatever you ask for. Well, I want to talk about this. A lot of it's just going to be about this. Because at the end of the day, these people are receiving good news. And one of the main piece of good news here is a summary of the reward of Jannah. And that's what we're going to spend a majority of our time on today. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا, two things. You have in it, meaning Jannah, two things. مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ, whatever you could possibly desire. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ, and you're going to have in it whatever you ask for. Let's talk about these two things because they're important. First of all, the idea of heaven. We'll use the word heaven, okay? Because like when we're growing up watching cartoons, even cartoons joke about heaven, or like even Tom and Jerry cartoons, like they, really, yeah, like they draw out heaven. And then when you look at like American cartoons and they draw out heaven, what usually do you see? Clouds. It's a bunch of clouds, and what else? Someone with a harp, or whatever. And what else? Gates, yeah, like pearly gates, and some dude at the front, like next, and and it's just really abstract. And I want to call this out because a lot of the time, like I know that we live in a quote unquote secular nation. Christianity runs through the blood of everybody, secular and non-secular, of like a non-Muslim person. Christianity's still in the minds of people, whether they realize it or not. That guy who drew the Tom and Jerry cartoon he might be an atheist, but where did he get the idea of heaven from? The Bible. This is not random that every cartoonist draws heaven the same exact way. It's because they're using the same source. Like, what's heaven? Okay, let's check. Let's Google some Bible verses. Okay, I'll just draw pearly gates and clouds and call it a day. Yeah? The Jews, for example, so what I'm saying is the Bible doesn't have an extremely detailed account of heaven the way that we do. Heaven, paradise, and Quran is extremely detailed. Very detailed. Just like hell in the Quran is also what? Very, very detailed. You will not find this level of like torture and hell and paradise and whatever in the Bible. You won't find it. It works both ways. For the Old Testament, for example, the Jews, they argue whether or not hell is real. Which you have to, just as a side note, what in the world did you do that Allah gave you revelation that literally a third of this thing is heaven and hell? What did you do to Allah's word that you took away heaven and hell? What in the world did you do? You know what I mean? Some of them, for example, like when you ask a Jew, like, what is heaven? You won't get the same answers. Like I had a Jewish teacher at UIC, and he was like, oh, it like varies. Some say it doesn't, like nothing happens. Some say that heaven is learning under the feet of Musa alayhi salam. That sucks. Like, some people might be into that, but I don't know, man. I didn't work this hard to learn more. Like, I already learned, you know. I know stuff. I don't need to learn more. You know what I mean? My point is that when you look at like other people's idea of heaven, whether it's a Christian or it's a Jew or it's a Hindu, whatever, they have their ideas. The idea of Jannah from the Quran is, I've explained this before, is a party. And really look it up. Look up whatever, like even Google, like heaven, and let Google AI give you a bunch of verses and stuff when you read through them. Heaven, paradise, Jannah in the Quran is a party. Like the way, and I want to break this apart between like when Allah says, or the angels are telling us, inshallah, in the future on our deathbeds, inshallah, you're going to have, number one, whatever you already desire, and number two, whatever you're going to ask for. Okay, when we talk about desires, there's kind of two groups of desires with a human being. There's something that everyone kind of has in common, and then there's stuff that's kind of specific to gender, to age, or to whatever the case may be. So let's talk about the general stuff. The general idea of heaven, Allah, for example, in Waqia would explain, like, for example, you're on these things called ara'ik, which are super, super high couches, and you're like chilling with your friends, meaning you have a view, and your palace is sitting, because everyone has a palace as like a default. That's like the mobile home of Jannah, is like a palace or a castle, right? Like that's like the like low tier real estate that everyone has by default, is like a castle or something that's protected by by the way, Allah calls what is it in Nabat? Forgive me, I forgot the word. But basically, it's like a garden that surrounds, and it's almost like if you go in aerial, it's like an eyeball, because the garden surrounds the castle and keeps people's eyes out. Like, you know, super fancy properties where like you can see it, but you can't see it. Like you're behind the gate, like, what are they doing today? They installed the swimming pool in the back or something. Like it's completely protected, but it's not on the same level as everyone else. It's actually super high up. It's like on top of a mountain. And you invite your friends over, and you're like chilling on these couches. And then Allah says in one ayah in Waqia, where if you translate it in English, it's so funny sometimes. But Allah says that these young people, your servants, they come out to you and your friends on these high couches, and they're bringing out a platter with cups. And if you translate in English, it's they come out with cups, and cups. But it's different kinds of cups. Like you have some cups that are super long, like the fancy ones you have in a party. You have some that's kind of like a pitcher or like a kettle that you hold stuff in. And then some like, you know, like where they drink alcohol out of, the short stubby ones. So they come out with all these different cups full of drinks. So it's like, and they come out, you know, like that, like when you go to like a fancy restaurant and they're like, whatever, like Beauty and the Beast, like, and they take the thing out. And you're like, oh, thank you. And you take it out. And anything that you possibly could want. Like the Prophet gave us, we have a hadith that he explained, you see a bird in the sky and you're like, oh, I wonder what that tastes like. And it's just like prepared in front of you. And Kahf, it's a really interesting one. It's a really unique thing of Jannah, where before you even head out in the world to go to this party of yours, there's these people that like, the best way I can describe it is like Beauty of the Beast. Like, you know, when she's like getting sized up for a dress and like all these inanimate objects are like sizing her up, and you know, like they're whatever tying her, and like they add something, and like a bird comes and adds something to her hair. It's like that, but better. They size you up. They give you like a watch that perfectly like matches your eyes or something, and they give you the whatever. They have like an unlimited wardrobe, and they like, what would you like today, Mashta? And like that kind of stuff. It's just, that's Jannah. It's a party, okay? But a lot of those scenes of Jannah are just kind of like in the beginning, like introductory stuff, okay? So that's number one, is like stuff that anyone can hear and they'll be like, dude, that's sick. That's awesome, man. Another one, for example, is like you're married. So if you're already married, you're still married to your wife, which is a good thing. And, you know, if you're not already married, you get married, right? And the beautiful thing about that actually is this, is that every single time you see your spouse in Jannah is like that first time you saw them. You know, like the first time you're like, wow, she's awesome, or he's whatever, like he's gorgeous, or something, whatever. Like that first time you see them, every time is like the first time but better. It's just love, like all of it. Not just like love we have in this life where we gotta work. Love, marriage in this life is just work. There's love there, but you have to get there. You have to work to get there after years and years of practice. You understand? But there is no work. There is no arguing. There is no nothing about her will annoy you. Nothing about him will annoy you. Nothing. There's no jealousy. There's no little things like maybe he sneezes away. You're like, ugh. Nothing. You don't say it, but in your head, you're like, that's gross. Nothing like that. Everything's just perfect about him. Everything's just perfect about her. That's just stuff that everyone wants. And then you have what people make out to be a very kind of awkward conversation, but we're going to talk about it, bismillah. And that's kind of the more specific desires, okay? Like, for example, how are we doing with age today? Good, okay. So, bismillah, you have, for example, and you have a lot of non-Muslims bagging on the Quran for this stuff, criticizing it for this stuff, which is really, really dumb in my opinion, but they do. What does the Quran call out that men get in Jannah, specifically? Hur al-Ain. Yeah, so all of them know. You guys pretend like you don't know, and all of them, mashallah, they're like, yeah, we know. So yeah, and that's 100, there's no need to sugarcoat it, by the way. That just is what it is, you know? Hur brought up in the Quran multiple times. And then you have Christian pastors that have zero respect going on YouTube being like, yeah, these Muslims are perverted and all they want is concubines when they get to paradise and all this kind of stuff, right? And it's 100% true. Men do get that. They get that fulfilled when they go to Jannah. 100%. That is 100% true. What do women get called out to get in Jannah is the question. Before I talk about that. Nothing specific, which is interesting. And this is a major lesson when it comes to Quran that I want you guys to know. What's almost equally, sometimes even more important, I'll repeat that. What's in the Quran, what is equally, if not sometimes even more important than what Allah says and how He says it is what He doesn't say and what He doesn't comment on. And Ustaz Noman gave me a lesson like this and I thought it was awesome, so I'm just going to repeat it because it opened my mind to this. There, for example, is, before I talk about that, if he did this experiment where he had a room like this, and he had like a bunch of young men, a bunch of young women, and he passed out a note card to the young men, and it's kind of funny, but he's like, I want you to write down something that you would want to enjoy, haram, halal, whatever, doesn't matter, something that you'd want to enjoy with no holds bar. If it's haram, don't imagine that it wasn't, and you'd want to enjoy it the rest of your life, what would that one thing be? How long do you think they took to write that answer down? Yeah, as long as it takes to actually write down the words. And they all wrote essentially the same thing is the point, right? You ask 100 men, what do you want more than anything in the world? What would you want unlimited access to, even if it was halal, whatever? You're going to get essentially the same answer because it's just how, subhanAllah, Allah created men. That's just how we're hardwired. For example, they even do psychological studies that the way that we react to skin, like bare skin, like exposed skin, even if it's an ankle. Back in the day, they make fun of a woman, right today we expose a lot more than ankles, but they make jokes about oh my God, I saw her ankle and she was beautiful. You know what I mean? They joke about that. But really that's the case, that any exposed skin does a lot physiologically to men. That's just how Allah created us. That's the case. To women, that might even gross some women out, actually, right? Exposed skin may or may not. It's not all the same for you guys. For men, it's literally all the same, for the most part. Generally speaking, it's all the stuff is generally, but generally means majority of the time. Majority of the time, that's just going to be the case for men. Even the way that we psychologically react to skin, any exposed skin, is a lot more. By the way, even with homosexual men, to male skin, subhanAllah, it's very strange. There's something about men responding to even a little bit of nudity, even a little bit, where it becomes physiologically it does something inside, okay? My point is, when he passed out those note cards, they all essentially wrote the same thing. You get the idea. When he did the same thing for the young ladies, I want you to write down something, one thing that you want more than anything else. It could be haram or halal. Pretend you get to have it as much as you want, with guilt-free, whatever. Do you think they all wrote the same thing? Immediately, guys, I'll shake your head, mashallah. They don't. Some of them, it was so funny. He was like, a lot of them wrote, it depends. Which is so funny. Here, it does not depend. There's no it depends. But here, it depends. And this is actually something beautiful about when Allah says that I'm going to take care of you. When Allah tells someone, I'm going to take care of you in Jannah, that's different for what it means to a man. It's different for what it means to a woman. Actually, if he told you, this group, oh, men will get this and women get this, some of you would be happy, others would be like, well, I guess that's nice, but that's not what I really want. You know what I mean? SubhanAllah, you guys are just a little bit more sophisticated than this side when it comes to things that you want. It's just a fact. For example, this is what I mentioned a little bit earlier. Did you guys know that I love this. I just love Allah. He's just so fun sometimes, man. Like, literally, there is a short verse in Quran where Allah describes a list of 5 or 6 things that men want in order. Guess what number 1 on the list is? It's women. The number 1 thing on the list is women. And then it's children. And then it's wealth. Branded horses, or like branded cars, you can say, like cars with like pimped out wheels or something. Really. I swear to God, this rings true. What used to be horses now, like, he mentioned branded horses, but nowadays you'll have a young man who got his first really disgusting looking Toyota Camry and put some weird stickers and like really weird rims on it, thinking it's all pimped out now. Literally, we're obsessed with this stuff. Cattle and plantations, so basically like businesses and stuff like that. The point is there a verse like that and here are the 5 things women want in order? No, because the list doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. My point is, going back to the point of it, when Allah says He's going to take care of desires, that means something different between this side of the room and this side of the room. You understand? If Allah said, and here's what women get, that would actually be against you, not for you, wouldn't it? So that's kind of a lesson here, is that when Allah doesn't mention something specifically, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. This side's more hardwired, this side not so much. This side, even when they get something that they want, you're still like, well, maybe something else could have been better. I don't know. Did I really want this? I don't even know. And you call 6 friends to make sure you wanted it. Right or wrong? Yeah, I'm going to take laughter as yes. They don't do that. They're like, yeah, it's fine. That's cool. Like, not much of a decision-making process here. They make decisions faster. You guys take a longer time because you want to see all of the options. All the options. And even when you make an option, you're like, I still don't know, though. SubhanAllah. And Allah knows you that well. So He spares you from that, actually. He spares you from that. Now, are there women that have that same sort of feeling towards like sexuality that men do? Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's not across the board, is it? It's not across the board. That maybe, I don't know what number you want to put on. That's a part, but not everyone. Here, it's the majority. So Allah caters to the majority in the book. So when these angels are saying, وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ, you're going to have in it whatever you used to desire, whatever you do desire, whatever you will desire. There are some things where it's like a Venn diagram, yeah? They're like, some things men desire, some things more intensely than women. Women desire specific things more intensely than men do. And then you have this middle spot where Allah spends most of His time on when describing Jannah, of like the party and like having properties and having a spouse, just generally having a spouse, and being married and having children and being served and being like dressed up and pimped, having a pimped out ride and rolling up to it, you know, with paparazzi, like you going into someone's house or something, you know. And some people want to learn, so you'll get to learn. I wonder what it was like when Musa split the sea, and then a flat screen pops up and you get to watch it. Really? مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ. Anything you made up already. And, well, look, this is really, when you think about this, Ustaz broke this apart. I never thought of it like this. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. And you'll have in it whatever you ask for. You might think those are the same thing. You might think they're the same thing. But listen, there are some things you already want because you have a nafs. Nafs, I'll spare you with that right now. We'll talk about that later. But the self, what's generally translated as the self, is this thing that, it's like a little kid. It wants things. It sees something and it wants it. The same way a 5-year-old's like, I want that. Give me more. Mommy. Like that. You keep doing that even up until 55, 60, 70, 80. You still want things. Those things might evolve over time, but you still act like a spoiled child when you don't get certain things. That's always going to be there. That's the nafs. And it collects things that it wants, and it also collects things that it deprived itself of. Like, why does Allah, for example, point out to young men, like, you will get hur al-ain? Why does He call that out? Because Allah asked those same young men, those same believing men, you need to control yourself. Did He not? Did He not ask that of us? 100%. You need to control yourself. And for those young men that did, they need an out. They need something to look forward to. I'll ask you this. Do you think the majority of men control themselves when it comes to that? That collective, whatever experience that they have, we'll call it? Absolutely freaking not. No, they do not. Even believing men slip up. That's why Allah says, for example, that they're in terms of like not lowering the gaze in general, He'll make a comment that all of those gazes, those where you didn't lower your gaze, all of that will be asked about illa lamam, except for like little slip ups, because even Allah is realistic. Like, you're gonna slip up, that's a difficult one, but for men who controlled themselves, they're going to have that out. There's no more guilt, no more guilt. Allah, for example, he generalizes this by saying that I believe it's in Waqiyah as well, you will be able to have fruit from whatever tree with no holds bar. Why do you think He says that? You will be able to have fruit from any tree, no holds bar. Why do you think that's important? Think back to a story of an early prophet. Go ahead. Adam and Sam and Eve. They were able to eat from any tree except that one. And Allah is like, that is now rescinded. You don't have to feel guilty about anything anymore. Whatever you want. You don't have to hold yourself anymore. You don't have to hold yourself anymore. That's Jannah. Does that make sense? But even, think about this. He split up between what you want and what you ask for. He made them two separate things. Meaning, you already want these things. Like when Allah, for example, describes Jannah, He uses things that you already know about. But sometimes He actually doesn't fill in the blank. Like, for example, He'll say, the reward of forgiving someone else, actually, which is an important lesson for us because it's a difficult one to do. The reward of forgiving someone who wronged, like you're in the right 100% and they wronged you. The reward of forgiving them. Does anyone know what the reward is? Allah says, فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. The reward is on me. And that could mean a couple things. It could mean it's a blank check. Whatever you want, you fill it in. It could be the reward is so amazing, and this is true of Jannah also. The reward is so amazing that even the Quran can't capture it in language. At the end of the day, we are limited in the seen world. We have no idea what Jannah is, what the unseen even is. And beyond that, language can only go so far. So for example, the Prophet ﷺ actually, he described women in Jannah. It's the weirdest hadith ever. Because it'll be like, they're so beautiful, you can see their bone marrow. And you're like, that sounds like a medical concern. That does not sound like beauty. But ﷺ, he literally was able to see Jannah, and he's like, that's the best I don't have any other language for you. You understand? It's not because that's like that they're nasty or whatever, they're inside out, or because someone's like, oh, are they inside out? No. That's because the beauty is so like for example, the beauty of your wife, for example, is so in the unseen that even he ﷺ, like seeing it is like, I don't have any other words except for you can see their bone marrow. I don't know what else to say. But you'll see. You know what I mean? Language limits it. So we're given a lot of this physical stuff that we already want. High couches and high palaces. By the way, I didn't finish the picture. While you're sitting with your friends in those like high couches and on your palace, water is running. There's a river flowing underneath you. Now what happens if you're elevated and a river runs underneath you? What happens to that water? What happens? You're on a mountain and there's a river. What happens to that river? It keeps going past the mountain? So your state's on a waterfall. SubhanAllah. That's like something that you can kind of color in, but you have all of these desires that Allah describes kind of with these physical words, and then you have وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. And then when you get there are things that you don't even know about that you're going to want when you get there. You can have those too. Things that I didn't even tell you about. Things you have no idea about. And you'll see it and be like, what in the world is that? I want that now. Forget these couches. I don't want this palace anymore. Let me get that. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. No holds bar. This is what the angel is now giving good news to this individual. And even to top it all off, they say, nuzulan. min ghafurin rahim, which is crazy. Nuzul is such a amazing word to use here. How much time we got? Oh, cool. After this, we'll take a short break, inshallah, with coffee. Nuzul, you know when you go to a friend's house and they invite you to dinner, and in the beginning, like, they sit you on a couch and they give you like peanuts or like chips, or they bring out water or like juice or something, just in the beginning. Like, this isn't dinner. I didn't invite you to have peanuts, but I'll give you these until dinner comes. Dinner's ready, still in the oven or whatever. That's called nuzul. Like introductory little snacks that you have. Or like you go to a restaurant, an easy example. You go to a restaurant, they bring you bread before the meal. That bread is called nuzul. It's like introduction. This isn't even it yet. You didn't come to whatever, Chamagucha for the bread. You came for the steak, but here's bread for now. Stuff your face so you can feel like you're more full. And this is your nuzul. The angels say all of what you already want, and anything that you see and you ask for, you'll get, and all of it isn't even Jannah yet. Nuzulan, all of it is introductory snacks. It's not even the real thing. You don't even know what you're getting yet. Nuzulan min ghafurin rahim. All of it is an introduction. Min ghafur rahim. From the one who is ghafur, the one who is rahim. After this, we'll take a break. I love that this is mentioned. From the one who was ghafur. Ghafur means the forgiving. Ghafara is to forgive or to cover up. Rahim means the one, like merciful. He's merciful, but the loving one, the one that's constantly merciful, the one that takes care of you. You know what I love about this? Why mention Ghafur and Rahim? Allahu Alam, it could be these people also messed up. These people also messed up. They made mistakes. They said Rabbuna Allah, thumma istaqamu, and they stood firm, but they made mistakes. Your master forgave you, your master loves you, you are validated, and you're done. Nuzulan min ghafurin rahim. That is like, you know what it reminds me of? In Yasin, you have this really cool story of these, I believe, 3 prophets that were sent to a certain city. And the people of that city would not listen to these 3 prophets. And then another 4th dude came from another city and was like, listen to the messengers. You better listen to the messengers. They're telling you the truth. I know that, I'm coming to you and I'm telling you should listen to them. As a non-prophet even. And they kill him. They kill that man. Which typically mushriks do, is they kill people that go against their faith. Especially in Quran, those stories. You know one of the first things that guy says when he is raised to Jannah actually? He says, yeah, late. It's so strange, subhanAllah. He's still thinking about the people he left behind. Ya layta qawmi ya'lamun. If only my people knew bima ghafara li rabbi, what my master forgave me. They don't even know what I did that Allah forgave me. They don't even know the crazy things that I've done that Allah forgave me anyway. Nuzulan min ghafurin rahim. The one that forgives you and loves you, you're gonna be a guest, and that implies, by the way, that he's the ghost subhanahu wa ta'ala and we're the guest. What an amazing host. He is going to give you, like, the peanuts you're gonna get are gonna be amazing. SubhanAllah. We'll finish the ayah after a short break. Let me have the sisters go ahead. Actually, forgive me, because you're fewer. You guys go ahead first and get some coffee and food, inshallah, and then come back, and then we'll have you guys go after, inshallah. Okay, Mother, you guys will come back. I'll give it like 6 minutes since it's gonna be kind of awkward. So you guys go ahead quickly, and then we'll have the sisters go next.